When you think of medieval warriors, few figures are as legendary or as controversial as the Crusader Knights. These armored men rode across continents under the banner of the cross, shaping centuries of European and Middle Eastern history. The Crusader Knights were not just warriors of faith, but also men of ambition, power, and contradiction. Their story reminds us how religion and politics can shape the course of history, for better and for worse. 1. Origins of the Crusader Knights. The story begins in the year 1095. Pope Urban II issued a call to arms, urging Christian knights of Europe to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim rule. This sparked the First Crusade, a massive movement of nobles, soldiers, and peasants traveling thousands of miles. For many knights, it was a holy mission promising spiritual salvation. But for others, it was also an opportunity for land, wealth, and glory. The military orders from this chaos rose powerful groups known as the military orders, monks who became warriors. The Knights Templar wore white mantles marked with a red cross. They became famous for their discipline, their battlefield courage, and their vast financial network that would later resemble modern banking. The Knights Hospitaller began as caregivers for pilgrims, but soon evolved into heavily armed defenders of Christian strongholds. The Teutonic Knights, formed in the Holy Land, later carried their campaigns into Eastern Europe, spreading Christianity by the sword. These orders blended faith, military power, and political influence like no one else in medieval Europe. The life of a Crusader. Knight life as a Crusader knight was grueling. Training began in childhood, with young squires learning to ride, fight, and serve their lords. By the time they became knights, discipline and loyalty were expected above all else. On campaign, they faced blistering deserts, unfamiliar diseases, and endless marches. Castles like Crac de Chevalier served as their strongholds, both homes and fortresses. But daily life was not just about war. Prayer, strict rules of conduct, and vows of poverty, or at least modest living, shaped their identity. For many, the knight's life was as much about faith as it was about the sword, battles and sieges. The Crusader Knights fought in some of the most legendary battles of the Middle Ages. In 1099, during the First Crusade, they stormed Jerusalem, leaving behind a legacy both celebrated and condemned for its brutality. Later, they clashed with great Muslim leaders such as Saladin, whose victory at the Battle of Hattin in 1187 marked a turning point. Jerusalem was lost and the Crusader states began to crumble. The Crusader Knights defended cities, led daring charges, and built impregnable castles. Yet despite their courage, they were often outnumbered and far from home. Legacy and decline. By the late 13th century, the Crusader presence in the Holy Land collapsed. Acre, the last Crusader stronghold, fell in 1291. Back in Europe, suspicion grew. The Knights Templar in particular became victims of political intrigue. In 1307, the order was accused of heresy and disbanded, their leaders executed. The Hospitallers and Teutonic Knights survived longer, shifting their missions elsewhere. Yet their influence lingered. From advancements in castle design, to financial systems that foreshadowed modern banking, to the enduring image of the knight in shining armor, the Crusader Knights left a permanent imprint on history. 6. The dual legacy. The Crusader Knights remain a symbol of contradiction. On one hand, they embody courage, faith, and discipline. On the other, their wars brought destruction, intolerance, and bloodshed. They were warriors of God to some, ruthless invaders to others. Their story is not just one of religion, but of ambition, politics, and human nature itself. Even today, the image of the Crusader Knight continues to inspire legends, novels, and films. But behind the myth lies a complex reality of men who fought and died for both faith and fortune. The Crusader Knights, heroes to some, villains to others, but forever a part of history. Subscribe for more History in Minutes.